Views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And it is Wednesday in the Riv after the absolutely biggest circus at the City Clowncil I have ever seen in my entire life. And believe me, that is saying something.
Yeah.
Because I've seen an awful lot of city council meetings. That was an absolute disgrace from start to finish. And they're already trying to spin it on Radio Pravda. I heard that somebody was talking about when the retirement system came up, it was crickets. Nobody said a word. Well, Ms. Nader, if you want to come on a show, we'll explain it, but I'll explain it to you. I'm the vice chair of the Fall River Retirement Board. I'm one of the two employee elected representatives on the board. We were both at that meeting with the director of the retirement board with all the numbers, not only all the numbers, the comparison of the city of Fall River to every other retirement board in the state. We had a packet that was probably 5 times thicker than the city's packet, and we were prepared to go there and explain it. Why they didn't call us up, I don't know. It's alleged that they just didn't want to go through the numbers for some reason, which they should have. But the reality is maybe they wanted to go home. Maybe Linda wanted it to be like Shelley and say, you know, we've talked enough because we talked about the police, and we just want to go home. Well, I don't know what the reason is, CJ, but I'm going to tell you one thing. I take offense to the fact that they created this. They didn't want to hit. We were there. And we had a packet for every single city councilor.
Mark this day on your calendar because I'm going to actually defend Linda because she said she had to recuse herself as soon as the item was read. As soon as they called the item, she says, I have to recuse myself. She stood up and she left the room.
She did.
Which was right.
But I don't know what they talked about before because there's an allegation that Joe Camara said, we don't want to discuss this.
I've heard those allegations.
So those are
too.
allegations. Yep. We can't confirm that.
Right.
But Joe did know I was going to speak because somebody inadvertently put my name, a friend, put my name on the citizens' input thing.
Right.
And he came out into the hallway and said, you know, you're up on citizens' input. And I said, I'm not speaking on citizens' input. And this is a fact. And I had witnesses. And I said, no, I'm here in my capacity with the retirement board to speak about the funding of this 5%. And it's not 5%, Sue, just so you know it. That 5% is on a $12,000 base, and it's only 2% because we've already gotten 3. That's
right.
The maximum allowed by the state. It's $60 per individual. So if you want to come on and discuss that, if you want to look at the packet, feel free to contact us. We will provide you with the numbers, and we'll even sit down and go over them with you. Why they didn't want to discuss it? You may have a valid question asking that, because I have the same question. So I just want to put this exactly in the context it should be in. This wasn't because they were rubber stamping anything, as the implication is. I don't know why they don't want to do this. Maybe because the CFO is on the board now, and we went over all the numbers with the CFO.
Which she didn't go over this with the city.
Which obviously she must have said, I've gone over all these numbers, and it's funded, everything's all set. I don't know. You'll have to ask each individual city councilor, but let's set the record straight. Because the retirees have been getting kicked around by people forever. I still remember Mary Sahadi calling people who spent 30 and 40 years working for this city liabilities. And I'm going to tell you something now. I also had an additional set of numbers for the retirees. Remember, when Social Security got an 8.5%, it was on their whole package. When they got 5.5%, it was on their whole pension. When we get a 3% COLA, it's on $12,000. There are only 6 retirement boards out of 108 that still have $12,000 as a COLA base. So the most we can get is $360 a year, less than $1 a day. People are outliving their pensions. We have 318 retirees living on $12,000 pensions. 318 people. And if they pay their Medicare and their health care, and we factor in inflation, I did the numbers. They're $2,000 in the hole before they pay another bill. 62% of the retirees are living on under $25,000. Subtract the $7,000 to $10,000 in inflation and their Medicare payments and everything else and see what these people are living on. This system, people are outliving their pension, and that is a disgrace. And that should have been heard at the council meeting by the general public, because it's a disgrace the way the retirees in this city have been ignored. The state reformed education. They have to reform this pension system, because people should not outlive their pension. If you live too long now, getting only less than $1 a day for the rest of your life, and you're fortunate enough, or in this case, unfortunate enough, to live into your 80s and 90s, you end up with this. Pensions of $12,000, $18,000, because when you retired, that was a livable pension. 30 years later, you can't live on it.
You know what the sad part
but this is it, because this infuriates me. I mean, you don't know how, I'm getting flashbacks of Sahadi calling them liabilities.
Yeah.
Okay? This is infuriating, and do your due diligence. Do your due diligence.
You know, the sad part about it is those retirees who are only getting $12,000 a year,
Yep.
they qualify for food stamps,
Yep.
Medicaid,
Yep.
besides their Medicare. And when they get the Medicaid, the state will pay their Medicare premiums, and they'll pay for their health care premiums. So I can't see a person who's given 30 years of their life to the city having to go on welfare. And that's basically what happens.
And you're right. You're right, CJ. That is, and believe me, I'm the guy who they call when they can't afford their medications and they can't afford things. Because I'm the president of the Retirees Association, in addition to being on the retirement board. So I'm the guy that gets the calls, and I have to listen to this. And I have to look at that, because I'm a retiree too. And I haven't been retired that long, but I can see, if I'm fortunate enough to live another 20 years, my pension won't pay anything. Because imagine retiring 30 years ago. What were you paying for gas and all your bills 30 years ago? What was the minimum wage 30 years ago? $2 and something? Yeah, it's like, then you get a pension based on a pay in that, and then you go 3 decades down the road, and the people are in their 80s, and we also have people who are not that old either. We have people who worked and don't get the 18% and the $14,000 and the $19,000 pay raises. People who are clerks that are making $30,000, they retire, their pension is gone in like 5 years.
Right.
They're already losing money, because the most we can get is $360 a year. And with this big bonus that we got from the governor, or former governor, we can get $600 this year rather than $300. So that's $1 and change a day. So not even $2 a day. It's $1 and change a day for this year. So listen, if you think I'm pissed, you're right. So I'm leaving that one, and let's get on to that circus that we had at the council, unless you got more to say about that.
Oh, no, I'm glad we're moving into the council, because on Radio Pravda,
Yeah.
they said that Sean Kadim was holding the patrolmen's union contract hostage.
Well, listen.
He was asking for numbers.
Yeah.
I mean, and he said that he's not going to vote, and he did say this, he's not going to vote for this contract if the superior officer's contract wasn't adjusted.
Which he shouldn't have been talking about.
Exactly.
He should
That's
not.
where the problem
That
was.
is a violation of the law.
Right.
He was talking about other bargaining units, and not only other bargaining units. He could make a general statement, like, I hope you guys are going to address this.
Right.
But then he got into specific pieces of that contract.
Right.
Like the differential, the rank differential. That's a subject of bargaining. You can't talk about subjects of bargaining in a contract. And Akins, I believe, said they've begun negotiations
Right.
with them. So they have a negotiation in progress. And Kadeem, who's supposed to be a city administrator, town administrator now, doesn't know that he's prohibited from talking about this thing. I understand. He can wear two hats, but those hats are still restricted by the law. The collective bargaining law clearly states that you can't discuss elements of bargaining when the contract is being bargained. And then they violated the Chapter 150E, Section 7. You can all look it up. Section 7 says clearly that within 30 days of an instrument being negotiated, and it goes before the council for no, it doesn't say council, it says the appropriate body. The appropriate body, school committee in the case of a school contract, and city council. And the city council has to appropriate money. It also says that it has to appropriate, fully fund it. And
I didn't hear that last night.
And for Sue Nader's information, they did not fully fund that contract.
I didn't hear that last night. All I heard was we're setting our budget up, planning our budget around this contract.
Yeah.
That's all they kept saying. We're planning it around this
But they said something
contract.
worse than that, CJ. And we got it on tape.
Yes, we do.
We have it, and we'll show it. And if you don't believe it, go back and look at it. Radio Pravda. When she was asked by Michelle Dion about specifics and how they were going to fund it, the answer first they asked Edkins, and he said, do you believe this could, I don't know if it was Kadeem, you believe you can fully fund this contract? His answer was not, yes, we can. He said, I believe so.
Right.
Which isn't a yes. I hate to tell you that, but it isn't a yes. And then the CFO, when asked, made it even worse. She said that they were going, what was the exact wording she said? She said they're going to make some investments and stuff.
Right.
But I can't believe it. I've forgotten exactly what she said, but she said, we're working on it.
Right.
Or something to that effect.
She did say we're working on it.
We're working on it. Well, somebody must have just texted me the exact words. Oh, no, that's something else. Jesus. But we're working on it. Well, working on it means it isn't funded.
That's right.
So you were saying this morning on Prav that it was fully funded. No, it's not fully funded. Pay attention. If I tell you to give me $100,000 and I'll pay you back, and you say, well, what are you using for collateral? And I say, I'm working on it, and you give me the loan, you're a moron. You're a moron. I haven't told you how I could pay it back. I haven't demonstrated how I can pay it back. Telling me that we're working on it, we're looking at it, and we're going to make some investments. Well, how do you know how those investments are going to be?
Right.
I mean, in today's market, the retirement system's losing everything. 401ks are gone. The new stat is that 23% of the people with 401ks will outlive their retirement now because of the hit they took on their
Right.
401ks. So you're saying that they fully funded it when the CFO admitted in front of a camera that part of that funding is speculative. It's not there. You might as well just say, we're going to go buy a whole bunch of the $50 scratch tickets and hope we hit one. That's not fully funded. That's not fully funded. And neither is mixing the overtime with salaries. Overtime is a separate budget. You want to talk about collective bargaining? Well, pull up a chair. I'll be glad to debate anybody about Chapter 150E and negotiations. Because I've been to the JLMC and arbitration twice, and I won every single element. I proved the city's ability to pay. I know when they've proved their ability to pay. They did not prove their ability to pay last night. Again, this city is out of control. Absolutely out of control. The financial team is full of crap. They're using speculation, and we're working on it. And we're gonna wrap the entire city budget around one collective bargaining agreement. How fiduciarily irresponsible is that? We're running a city based on one contract. And in the other statement, when they said, what are you doing with this massive pay raise? It's like, well, we had to. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. You're not supposed to negotiate a contract that you can't fund. I'm not saying police don't deserve that raise. I'm not saying. Look, they did their job. They went to the table, and they used the situation to their best advantage, which I would freely admit in front of this camera. If I was in their shoes, I would have done exactly the same thing. Because that's what you do when you're a union guy. You negotiate for your membership. But when you negotiate for your membership, you're walking a slippery slope, because when you make demands like this, if you had a city like Attleboro who said, we can't afford it, and they reject the contract, it's going to take you another 2 years, 3 years to ever get a contract. You know, they used the circumstances that prevailed to negotiate this contract, which is extremely rich, one of the biggest pay raises I've ever seen in this last 20 years in the state. But that's their job. But it's the job of the city council not to say we had no choice. It's city council's job is to say, by law, by the way, by statute, it's to fund this contract fully, all elements of the contract. And they didn't. This is the fallout from Paul Coogan, because Paul Coogan sent a letter that said their 5-year forecast, and it ends with, overall, our 5-year financial forecast is sound and reflects the city's ability to address its challenges and opportunities with the resources necessary for controlled growth and spending. That is the biggest pile of manure I've ever seen. You call that controlled growth? You gave out a contract that's so big that you have to run your entire budget based on funding that one contract. Really? This guy is he's like a nuclear bomb. The only good news we had, maybe people will go to the polls and get rid of this guy, because Lori Lightfoot got voted out. People in Chicago got sick of the crime, got sick of being abused, got sick of high taxes for nothing, and they booted her out. But this last night was it was a travesty. It was an absolute travesty, and it's an indication of the total chaos. It's not only the police department that's in chaos, it's the damn city, the financial piece. This city, every mayoral candidate that declares the first piece of their platform should be a full, independent forensic audit of this city by an outside entity like Ernst & Young, not Mary Sahadi. She's doing one in Westport, I think, or Tiverton. There's a political, that forensic audit's going to be like the police investigation, which we'll get to shortly. But the reality is that last night was a total and utter disgrace. It showed that nobody, management, council, or anybody knew anything about collective bargaining. Apparently, the only people who knew anything about collective bargaining were the police union.
I'll tell you, I spoke with you prior to this coming before the city council, and I said the city council will vote for this. The majority of the city council will vote for this because it's public safety. What did Radio Providence do? Michelle Dion voted against public safety. She did not vote against public safety. She made it very clear throughout the meeting that she supports public safety. She finds public safety to be very important. But her questions about the budget and how this was going to be funded were not answered. And she did what was right under the law.
You know, you're right, but you know the other thing that they forgot to mention? The point she made very, very clearly, and kudos to her, because she's doing her job, because remember what the Attleboro City Council did. They didn't say the firefighters in Attleboro didn't deserve what they got.
That's right.
They said the city could not afford it at this point in time.
Right.
Okay, so Michelle Dion said, I look at these people here that are looking for this contract, but when we have to, in 4 or 5, in 3 or 4 or 5 years, when we have to lay off 50 police officers because of the cost of this contract, they're going to all be in there complaining about being laid off.
That's right.
But nobody cares about that. That's why the law exists, boneheads. You have to fund things. You can't do stuff like, because Paul doesn't care. Patronage, Paul doesn't care. Give everybody a pay raise, they'll shut up and go away. They gave them double time and a half, not time and a half.
Right, double time and a half.
Holy, I can't believe that's like, wow. They gave them an 18% pay raise and double time and a half. How do you think that's going to affect? Then them idiots say, well, we're going to see less overtime. So what? You're still going to have the same cost for overtime because the salaries went up.
That's right.
You can have a few more people to get overtime, but the reality is when the salaries go up that much, the overtime budget at double time and a half is going to be larger, and I'll place a bet on that.
And you're a betting man.
And I'm a betting man because I know contracts. That was it was a total and utter disgrace, and it was an indication of how dysfunctional this city has become under the leadership of Paul Coogan. Everything's dysfunctional. It's hard for me to get it out. It's like sticking in my throat that I think I would rather at least have Mary Sahadi back just because she might actually admit this stuff.
Right.
Rather than try to say, well, we're working on it. We're going to make some investments.
But our CFO has no vested interest.
No,
she's from Warwick.
Of course.
So what vested interest does she have in Fall River budgets?
Remember, they believe.
They believe.
I believe it can be funded. I believe I'm going to hit a scratch ticket. I've been believing that since they came out.
Well, guess what? There's a song. I believe I can fly.
Yeah. They better hope I don't hit a scratch ticket because I'll sue every one of them. I'd take these councilors, these 8 councilors, to court for violating their fiduciary responsibility to fund the contract properly.
Right.
Because they funded an illegal contract.
Yes.
That contract was not funded. They said in front of a camera that they're going to look at investments and stuff, that they have to look at the entire rest of the city budget to maybe fund this contract. That is fiduciarily irresponsible, and I got case law that says they're supposed to be fiduciarily responsible. But this is nuts. Then we segue, unless you want to add a little bit to that. We segue into the next dysfunction. Here we go. La, 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 la. Investigation complete into the Fall River Police Department's missing drugs. And you know what that investigation did? An investigation into Fall River Police's missing drug logs is over, but the mystery remains. Yes, the mystery remains.
A 7-page report came out about that.
7-page report. You know something?
Nothing.
They don't know anything.
That's right. They know
Drugs
nothing.
Drugs are missing.
Yeah.
And
does that surprise you?
Well, you know what surprises me? Well, no, it doesn't surprise me. I'm sorry. I'm being.
You're being facetious.
I am being facetious. Nothing. This is 2 years ago.
Yep.
This investigation, the higher-ups weren't told for a year. We've proven that the police department, and I'm not talking about the patrolman who just got a pay raise or out on the street, risking their lives. It's got nothing to do with pay. It's got to do with leadership. Leadership from the mayor, leadership from, well, we got 3 different police chiefs. You get a, it's like police chief de jour.
Yep.
You know, the police chief of the day. So, but nothing in 3.5 years in office, virtually, almost 3.5 years in office, he has not had a press conference, taken one step to fix this. Nothing. And still, you want to talk about crickets, Sue? There's where the crickets are. How can anybody condone this? We can't figure out where they went. They can't, everything's missing. And I thought the last time I checked that the evidence chain was sacrosanct in the police department.
It's supposed to be.
How many cases are going to be thrown out because of this?
Oh, and the report doesn't even say how many cases are affected.
That's right. Of course not. Because we don't know it. We know nothing.
Nothing.
And that's what Paul said.
Okay, Sergeant Schultz.
Patronage Paul walks around. You ask him about what's going on in the police department. I know nothing. But I gave him a big pay raise.
That's right.
I know nothing. Yeah, it's still going on.
Yeah.
Has there been anything? Has there been anything to fix the standard operating procedures? Is there any? You got all these superior officers that were talking about the rank differential.
Mm-hmm.
With all this oversight, you have to ask how these things happen, because that's what they're paid to do. Listen, I know. I was in that type of department, a quasi-military department. And I was a district chief for a very long time, and it was one of my responsibilities to once a month give a pre-planned drill at a site that was a high-hazard area, like a mill, the chemical plant down on Bedford Street, yeah. So we used to have to give a pre-planned drill. We read all the apparatus that had to go there on an initial response, and we'd walk around the premises, look at the gate, look at the nearest hydrant, the whole thing, if we had to fight a fire on that premises. I missed one. And the next day I came on duty, I had a note from the chief of the department, Louis Shea. Why did you miss that pre-plan last Wednesday? Because we used to do them on Wednesday nights. So, you know me, I didn't get along with him anyway, because, I was a union guy. So I sent them a nice terse letter back, and I said, check the fire logs. I was at a fire. I've rescheduled it. That was the end of that. But they called me on it. Just like it was my job to call captains and lieutenants if they didn't do their paperwork properly, or if they didn't do something right. They weren't drilling. If I walked in a station they were supposed to be drilling, the officers were all in deep doo-doo, because that's what you get paid to do. This department has been in total chaos since the day he stepped in, and he hasn't said talk about crickets. There's your crickets you're looking for, so I found them. They're in the 6th floor.
It's amazing how this happens. And, again, we're going to look down the road in 2 or 3 years, and you and I will be here, and we'll be talking about potential layoffs.
We're going to be talking about potential receivership.
Yeah, we're going to be looking at some. And guess what? Paul won't care because he's not there. He won't be there. He wants one more term so that he can screw up the city that much more and leave us holding the bag. And he'll be like, I'm out of here. I got my pension. I've got everything. I'm all set. I don't need anything else. What do I need? What do I care? I'm even moving out of Fall River because I don't need this crap. So, it will be interesting to see.
It won't be the first time he moved out.
That's true. That's true. Well, I want to thank you all for watching, and remember, stay safe, stay angry, and hold your politicians accountable. We'll see you on Friday. Have a great day.